Okay, well, thank you for joining today. Today we're going to be talking about the kind of new features that SharePoint 2013 has implemented. This will be very helpful for those of you who are looking to upgrade to SharePoint 2013, or maybe you're looking at going to spinning up your own SharePoint environment, or even looking at Office 365, which is really running SharePoint 2013. So we're going to cover 8 specific topics today. The first one we'll be focusing on is social and the social capabilities. Microsoft's really done a lot of work on making sure that there are different acquisitions of like Yammer and looking at what Facebook and Twitter does, being able to take all those features and integrating them into the enterprise. Organization, organize, this is kind of more of the document management capabilities, the bread and butter of SharePoint. Search, we'll be discussing all the new search functionality that's been implemented. We'll also get into the build, and this is where you talk about branding and workflow development. We'll also be talking about mobility. So this is the features that have been changed to handle mobile views of their actual SharePoint environment. We'll discuss cloud apps, the new app model inside of SharePoint. We'll discuss business intelligence, and we'll also talk about OneDrive for Business, formerly known as SkyDrive Pro. So to start with, we'll get into the big change inside SharePoint 2013, and that is the social aspects. So again, SharePoint has really made a lot of push to actually make it easier for users to be able to collaborate inside of their environment. Before, people were still sending a lot of emails back and forth in regards to documents that they found that might be of interest to people, or just doing mass mailings of email quite a bit inside an environment. So what SharePoint has done is made a lot of changes in regards to your actual people, documents, sites, and actual tags, just like in Twitter. This gives you the ability, again, to be able to find information that's important to you and grab that information by following it and having all that data kind of presented to you on your personal landing page. You also have your personal sites that other people see. So this, again, is controlled by what you want other people to see. This isn't really your Facebook where you're going to put your pictures of your nice cat or your nice dog or your kids playing. This is going to be specific information in regards to what people need to know about you as you are in regards to you in the enterprise. So I'm going here and I'm finding out who Ann Wallace is. I'm finding out that she's the president. She's, in executive management. I have her email, her phone, her office information. I have her activities. So I'm seeing let's see that she liked the post that somebody posted. I could go in there and find out what she's doing, what documents that she is sharing with others in the company. Again, you as the user have complete control of what other people see. So if you don't want anybody to know anything about you, you can easily just, ignore all the information and block everything out. But if you're somebody higher up in the company that does a lot of communication to the company, you're probably going to want to open up a little bit of your data here. But now people can go in there and follow you instead of you having to send out an email about some new event coming up. You also have the ability to have these news feeds inside of your team sites. This is really useful if you're wanting to do collaboration with, let's say, different people that are never on site. So if you have people that are based in another state and you have to collaborate with them on a project, most of the time that collaboration is done via email. But with adding newsfeed type of capabilities inside of team sites, I can now spin up a team site for our specific project that we're working on, and then I can go into that project and I can post a discussion. And because people are following that site that are a part of my team, as soon as I put a new discussion in there, they're alerted or they're notified that, hey, somebody posted a new discussion in there. So I don't have to send that email anymore. I can go in there and look at the discussion. Also gives the ability for other people to come in if they have permission and see what discussions are going on. Instead of forwarding an email chain, they can just go in and look at these nice news feeds. So that news feed's almost very similar to like a new document library that's available to you that you can use in any of your SharePoint sites. You also have the ability to follow documents. So this is really nice because a lot of times users see documents that are important to them, and before they would just grab the link of that inside of their browser and add it as a favorite on their browser. Or they would go and grab the document that's important to them and they'd save a copy of it on their desktop. But as soon as your desktop were to burn up or something were to happen to it, Or let's say that document were updated, now they have a disconnected document or they can't find that document. So they have to go through the whole process again to find that document. Since you can follow documents now inside of SharePoint 2013, I can go in there and as I'm following documents, that information shows up on my document landing page. So I can go in there and see the documents that I'm following. Even if those documents maybe were moved or if somebody made changes to them, all they are is placeholders to that document. SharePoint also uses the search engine to be able to give me suggestions on documents I might want to follow. So if I follow a lot of HR documents and somebody posts something new, a new HR document, it might have that as a suggestion. I'm not following that document, but it's just giving me suggestions, and I could follow it if I wanted to. You also have the ability to do a lot of aggregation of your task. So if you were assigned a lot of tasks on different sites inside of SharePoint, now with my task view, I can click on my task and see all the tasks in a nice timeline view. I don't have to have Project Server to see this. It's just right out of the box SharePoint. So tasks that I'm assigned show up here. If I wanted to, I could integrate that with my Outlook 2013 environment, so I had those tasks also showing up in my Outlook. But again, it gives you the ability to see what's coming up in regards to that. You can also set your own views and your own filtering just for what's shown on here. So a great capability kind of from a project management standpoint. You also have the ability to have community sites. These are really nice for those groups, let's say marketing, that wants to send out a lot of information to a large mass of people inside of your environment. This was known before as a blog site, but they've made a lot of new social enhancements to it. They've given a lot more control over contributors, so only allowing certain people to be able to contribute to the blog site. It also gives you the ability to follow these topics, so as new topics come out, I can follow what's going on for a marketing team. Or let's say that we have a different group out there that wants to talk about garage sales or stuff, just kind of off-the-wall type of topics. Instead of sending out those mass emails again, you're able to spin up a community site and give people the control to go in there and post what they want, and people can either choose to follow it or not choose to follow it. All this information is also backed up with SharePoint Newsfeed apps. So these are apps that are available on the Microsoft Store, the iOS Store, and the Android Store. And these give you the ability to download the SharePoint Newsfeed app, which is free. All you have to do is put in the URL to your My Site that's provided to you, type in your username and password, and now it's tied into the kind of that newsfeed that you had before. So if you look in the bottom two pictures there, you can kind of see the followers and the following, just very similar to like a Twitter application that you would see. You can actually do that through the newsfeed apps. And you also have the ability to do conversations and post through the actual iPad type of view or actually on a phone if you wanted to. So those are kind of the big changes into social. And again, those features available for on-premise and also available on Office 365. The next area of big changes to SharePoint are in regards to organization in your documents. So documents is, again, that bread and butter of SharePoint. So the changes that they did here were just kind of enhancements to make stuff a lot easier for people to organize their data inside of SharePoint. The first big change that you might see is if you go in to create a new team site, you have this new view of a team site. So you have a project automatic timeline that's available to you. You have kind of animated web parts that are available to you. You have Newsfeed document library, and you also have your standard document library. Again, this is just a specific template I decided to show that shows a lot of these features available to you. But if you were to pick any other template, you can still get these features and put them onto your actual SharePoint site if you wanted to. One big change that's a very pleasant thing that a lot of people are happy about is drag and drop. So before in SharePoint 2007 or 2010, to upload those documents, you would have to click on that document upload, and you would say upload this one document. If you wanted to upload multiple documents, most of the time you'd be prompted to install an ActiveX control to be able to support that, and a lot of times it wouldn't work if you didn't have a specific version of Office. Now SharePoint's been changed so that if you have a IE9 browser or a new version of Chrome or Firefox, you're able to literally drag and drop one-to-many documents right onto the document library and let go, and it will automatically upload those documents for you. Again, a great feature. It really cuts down the amount of effort that you had to do before on actually promoting documents into the side of the document library. If you've used term stores before, it was a great way to, in 2010, to be able to take a lot of information and kind of organize it with tagging and then tag that data. One challenge that a lot of people found in SharePoint 2010 was I have 150 documents and I need to tag all these documents with a term store. I had to go in and manually do each one of those. Microsoft realized this being a problem, so in SharePoint 2013, they've added the ability to do bulk migration inside of the quick edit view of document libraries. So now I can go in kind of the quick edit view, or Excel view as some people call it. I can find the term store that I want, and I can highlight one item, and I can highlight multiple and say apply this term to every one of these. So again, this is really nice, being able to update metadata in bulk, which you couldn't do before inside of SharePoint. Another enhanced feature is with document sets. Now, those of you who might not have used document sets before, document sets are the idea of having one or many documents kind of shown as one document inside of your library. So if you go to the actual library nowadays and you ask for, let's say, the June 2013 National Geographic, they aren't going to give you the June 2013 National Geographic. They're going to go and actually get you the National Geographic binder. And inside of that binder, they're going to give you all the different magazines of 2013. It's just like the document sets. So the document sets are one view of a document, but when you click on it, you are actually presented with all the documents that are bound inside of that document set. So it's a great way to organize a lot of documents that are going back and forth that you need to make changes to. So again, you also have OneNote folder support in here. So that means I can actually take a OneNote notebook and I can put that inside a document library or inside of a document set. So all my interchanges that people are doing or conversing in different meetings, we can have that all inside of a OneNote folder. I can also take the ability to actually easily declare records. So what I mean by easily declaring records, if I want to declare a record of an item or a document, I can actually go in there, declare the record, and that record will now lock that document so that nobody but a big administrator can unlock it. This is really nice if you just finished a legal contract and it has to be bound or kind of archived for a certain amount of period. Then you're going to be able to easily go in there and declare these records. You also have the ability inside of document sets to actually go in there and apply it to a record inside of a record center. So a record center is the ability to take documents that you have locked, take those documents and offload them for archival. So if they had to be retained for, let's say, 5 years, by sending them to the record center, I'm taking that document and moving it to a different area that has a certain amount of period associated with it so that nobody else knows about the document. It's been moved off, and other individuals in the future, if you come in and have an auditing, they can come in and look at that record center and be able to pull up that document if need be. So again, very good for document retention. Next, we're going to get into search. So there's been a lot of changes inside of search. The biggest one is that before, if you wanted some really nice fancy features in search, you had to, in 2010, purchase what was called the Fast Search. The Fast Enterprise Search gave you the capability to do a lot more federation with searching. But in 2013, Microsoft decided to just pull all the enterprise type of search capabilities and give it to you in SharePoint 2013. So if you get 2013, you're getting features that before you had to pay for in 2010. So a lot of that is the unified search capability is a lot of that type of information that is now available to you that you had to pay for before. You also have personalized search results that are available. You have rich contextual previews, and this gives you the ability to quickly find what you need and for SharePoint to actually learn how you search and be able to give you more relevant search results for you. So as you can see on this next display, this is kind of a standard. If I went in there and searched in HCI, this is what I would have returned to me. As you can see, I have a quick, easy visual refiner in the bottom left corner. That means I can kind of visually scope in the dates that I feel that the documents that I'm looking for are available to me. Those would automatically change the views. I also have the ability to kind of preview if you use the Office Online or Office web apps. You can have a quick preview of that document, but you also have the great contextual action ability for you. So this means that I can hover over a result that came in, and I can quickly do an action on it. Before, I would have to click on the document, go to the document, and do what I needed, like edit the document or copy the link of the document and go do work. Now with the contextual menu on the search results, I can actually go in there and I can click on edit and immediately start editing the document. Or let's say, hey, this document's important, I want to follow it. Or I can just set send and pop up a nice email and send the link of that document to somebody else that wanted it. Or I go, I think that's the right document, but maybe it's another document in that library. I could click on View Library and it'll take me directly to that library, and then I can see all the other documents that are in there. So again, giving you great capabilities to do a lot of actions on the search page so you don't have as many clicks that you used to in previous versions. You also have enhanced people results. So the more people put about themselves, like skills, interests, schools, etc., the more results are going to show up specifically to that individual. So by clicking on HCI and clicking on people, I see that Alex Darrow has human-computer interaction in there, and I've also seen that he has authored a document about human-computer interaction. That's great. Maybe that's the document I was looking for. Or maybe I just want to talk to Alex and ping him, so I could click on View His Profile, and maybe I just want to start following it. So again, people changes are very nice features that are available now inside of SharePoint 2013. You also have video results now and video previews. So if you have standard codec videos, they're going to show up in a nice preview mode. So if you have videos stored online. So in this case, I see some nice videos. I could hover over that video if I wanted to and hit play and view it in a small window. Or I could click on it and go to the actual page that the video is on. If it's a video that's not available from a standard codec like a QuickTime, then I'm going to get the video displayed, but I won't get the nice preview of it. I'll have to actually click on it to get to the page to actually view that video. Another piece that has been enhanced with videos is the ability to embed videos very easily. Before, if you wanted to take a YouTube video and copy and paste the YouTube stuff, you would have to do a lot of changes to get it to work inside of SharePoint. Now you can literally copy the embed code of a YouTube video and paste it right onto your site and view it. Or you can go to a video that you have, let's say, stored on a document library, and you can say generate the embed video, and you can copy and paste that embed video anywhere on your site. So again, it makes it a lot easier to work with videos or any type of multimedia that before was a lot more of a challenge. The next section we're going to talk about is intelligent refiners, or I call it the Skynet of SharePoint. So the idea that SharePoint is going to learn the words that you use the most, what you're actually looking for. So in this case, I'm typing in HCI research. So I'm typing in HCI, but I always go to stuff that's specific about human-computer interaction. So SharePoint knows who I am because I had to sign in to the actual site. And because I signed in, it's going to start storing kind of what I search for. So it sees that human-computer interaction is specifically HCI when I type it in. So the more I type in HCI, the more it knows human-computer interaction, and it starts showing relevant results to me. Now the reason it can do that is because I'm logged in. Google and other sites do that because they store cookies on your desktop, but as soon as you go to another browser or you're on a new desktop, it's not going to remember what you searched for, so your relevant results aren't going to be good. SharePoint, on the other hand, since you're logged in, is always going to be storing that type of information. You can also add query rules, so if you have specific tags or terms that you use in the enterprise, you can go into the search engine and actually define these ahead of time instead of having SharePoint trying to figure them out for you. You also have the ability to do search-driven content. So what this means is the ability to create one page that's dynamic for all your products and tell it, okay, I want to show blog information on one side, I want to do product news here, and I want to show videos in regards to the product in the middle. And then based on what term they use or what product they click on to this page, I'm going to go out and use that term to grab the correct data for that product and pull it back. Before, you would have to actually create a product page for every single product that you wanted. Even if they were the same look and feel, you would still have to create it multiple times. But by using these enterprise search web parts, I can now build pages that are dynamic just based on terms to be able to get that data. So again, it's a really helpful way to kind of build those product pages. You also have the ability to do search-driven navigation. So the search-driven navigation is controlled by these terms or by your hierarchy. So in this case, research, computer sciences, human-computer interaction. If I wanted to, inside of the navigation, I could also put human-computer interaction under research and development. I can store up to 10 different friendly URLs or friendly different navigation points outside of there so that this same page can be navigated to from several different locations, but always kind of carry that look and feel of what I wanted from the human-computer interaction site. This search-driven navigation is very helpful if you have a large amount of products or information that has a consistent look and feel, and specifically internet-facing sites. For your enterprise, it's probably good for news feeds, etc., but not as much versus a internet-facing site. Last thing we're going to talk about inside of search is Office Online, which recently had been renamed from Office Web Apps to Office Online. This is a capability that any user or any company can get the read-only capabilities. So that means that I can go on there, search for a Word document, I could hover over that Word document, and I could read very quickly kind of inline of that actual document. If you have Office Professional Plus licenses, you can then give the ability to actually edit documents. And this means editing documents in your browser. Why would you do that? Well, if you have a lot of people that have Mac devices or iOS devices, or let's say some Android device, and they want to be able to make changes to a document, most of the time they'd have to pull up a VM or have to go out and get an Office license specifically for their actual device to be able to make that change. But with Office Online or Office Web Apps, I'm able to actually make changes to a Word document, Excel document, a PowerPoint, or a OneNote document through my browser. So as you can see right here, I'm showing just kind of Internet Explorer type of view, but I could use Chrome, I could use the latest version of Firefox. And when I go in there to say edit the document, what it does is actually give me a Word type of interface inside of the browser. I don't have to have any type of Office tool installed on the device that I'm using. I can actually go in there and edit the document because the Office Web App Server is serving as that actual license for you. So again, this is really nice if you have a lot of iOS devices or bring your own device to work. You can actually go in there, do basic editing of PowerPoint, of Excel, and make changes to it. Now, they are scaled versions of it. So if you're doing just standard editing, you're okay. But if in Excel, let's say you're wanting to do macros and stuff like that, you aren't going to be able to use Office Online or Office Web Apps for that. You'll have to actually use the full-blown version. Luckily, it will detect if you have actual Office installed on it. So if you look up in the corner of this actual screen, you'll see Open in Word available to me. So it knows that I have Word installed. So if I click on Open in Word, it's automatically going to get that document and present that document to me in my actual Word application. Next, we're going to get into building. So building of SharePoint. What changes have been made in regards to actually SharePoint in general on how I can actually develop stuff inside of SharePoint. One of the big changes in regards to SharePoint is before in Office 2010 or in 2007, you had an extranet and intranet license. So if you purchased SharePoint, you could get the extranet and intranet as one license. But if you wanted to do anonymous or internet-facing SharePoint, you had to actually buy a separate license to be able to pay for that. SharePoint has taken that and actually implemented that automatically for you. So now those licenses are all brought together. So if you want to do an anonymous-facing site, you can do an anonymous-facing site. If you want to do an extranet or you want to do an intranet, you can do any of those that you see fit. You don't have to buy another SharePoint license to be able to do that. So it's really nice if you have an external-facing site. No reason to buy any more licenses. Composed looks is the way you had themes before in SharePoint 2010. Composed looks just takes that to a next level. It gives users the ability to go in there, change fonts, change font colors, and actually change images for a background and be able to quickly make changes to their SharePoint site if they want just a quick branding of a team site. They can do that very easily with composed looks. If you want more advanced type of changes inside SharePoint, before, if you had to make changes inside SharePoint 2010, you would hire a designer. That designer would go and let's say they're a great UI HTML expert. They would go out and design a beautiful looking site for you, at which point they'd give you the HTML code. You would go to another group that would be handed that, being told, I need you to implement this inside of SharePoint. What would happen is the people that were handed the HTML were kind of had their hands tied with SharePoint. It was very hard for them to be able to implement all that HTML because the stuff that the developer was actually creating is a little bit different than what SharePoint allowed. Microsoft realized that and heard a lot of us complaining about it, so they introduced what's called the Design Manager. So what that means now is you can have your HTML CSS guru be able to create their site in, let's say, Adobe Illustrator or any other type of web tool that they want. They can develop the HTML, and now what they can do is use Design Manager and actually upload all the HTML that they did. SharePoint will take that and generate a master page for them. Now that master page will not have all the functionality of like menus or web part zones or page layouts, but what it does give them is the ability called through the Snippet Manager to actually get just blocks of commented code and take that commented code and stick that where they want to inside of their actual HTML page. SharePoint automatically is always making changes, so when you make a change to that HTML master page, it automatically generates the actual SharePoint master page. So what this does now is give the user who doesn't maybe know a lot about SharePoint, but knows a lot about HTML, the ability to actually build their site on the fly using whatever HTML tool that they want to use. And the snippets are just commented blocks, so the actual HTML tool that they use is not going to see anything different. SharePoint uses those comments to actually generate the controls that are needed. So this greatly cuts down on the amount of time that you have to do inside of branding SharePoint from before what you had to do. One other additional feature is cross-site publishing. So with cross-site publishing, if you had information on your internet site or your intranet site and you wanted to post it to your internet site, you would have to actually contact somebody more than likely and say, hey, can you take a copy of this new article that we had, and I need you to post it out there onto the new site. And somebody would have to actually go through the process of making an exact copy of that and pushing that out. What has changed now is you can set up cross-site publishing so that when you publish from one location, you can push that content automatically to your other SharePoint site. So again, this is really nice if you have top news that you post internally and you want to make it available to your internet site. You could turn on cross-site publishing to publish across those sites. Again, the meta-driven navigation that I talked about before, the ability to tag information and use friendly URLs is very powerful inside of SharePoint 2013. Because I have this ability, I can build out my hierarchy. In this case, I'm using Europe, and I'm going all the way down on Copenhagen and narrowing down to specific things inside of Copenhagen. But if somebody were to come to me and say Denmark has decided to join the Russian Federation or something else, then I before would have to update every single site and update their navigation to represent and pull Europe out of it. But if I use terms metadata-driven navigation, I'm able to go, okay, I'm going to move all of Denmark under a new term called the Russian Federation. By doing that, it automatically updates all the links, all your tagging for you because I use term-driven navigation. So again, you want to really look at how you have your data laid out, your documents and your sites. If a lot of it is consistent and that stuff changes a lot, then meta-driven navigation is going to be something that you definitely want to look at to help improve moving and changes that are occurring. Workflow was kind of a change from 2010 to 2013. They've added a lot of capabilities to give users, power users, the ability to do some really nice workflow using Workflow Designer or SharePoint Designer. Before, you still had such a limit and you ended up having to do a lot of code to be able to do workflow generation. And that really put a lot of push down onto your developers and not as much on the power users who are the ones that really need the workflows. So some of the new features that are available to you, one of my favorite is the ability to do looping. so I can do looping inside of just a SharePoint Designer. I can also leverage web services, so if I want to interact with another web service, let's say an Amazon web service or a Salesforce, I can do that directly inside of the SharePoint Workflow Designer. Again, this is not any coded solution. This is just drag and drop capabilities and configuration that you might have been used to in Designer Workflow before. But in general, there's over 50 new features that have been added to SharePoint Workflow. So if you have a large presence of workflow or even custom coded workflow, you might want to look back and take a look at, before going to SharePoint 2013, look at if a lot of those features, if that workflow can just be redesigned inside of the Workflow Designer, and now you don't have to worry about the reason to actually go in there and spend time doing coding. One other big change that Microsoft has done is they have noticed a lot of move in mobility. A lot of people are bringing their own devices to work. They're wanting to hit their SharePoint site, or let's say you have an internet-facing site, they're wanting to go in there and actually seeing some of that SharePoint capabilities. Microsoft realized that, so they focused on 3 specific areas. They focused on what it means for a mobile browser. They implemented native apps on all the different stores, and they also implemented Office hubs. Native apps, I talked about that before, the Newsfeed app. The Office Hub is an app. I believe it's going to be out on iOS at the end of this quarter, so not too long from now. And that should give you the ability to kind of go in there and be able to actually work on documents and actually view some of the documents using an iPad. If you have a Windows device, the Office Hub is currently available to you, so you can kind of go in there and use it. But again, the phone browser experience is kind of their biggest change. Before, if you were to go on and turn mobile features on for your SharePoint 2010 site, you had kind of the view on the left there. Kind of not very friendly, didn't look really nice. So what they did was they went, well, we're going to focus on what mobility looks like today. So if you were to turn on mobility for your site, you would have what's viewed at in the middle there. Very HTML5 friendly, a little bit easier to navigate. You also have the desktop view, pinch and zoom. So if you want to kind of view, zoom in and out with your fingers, it recognizes that. Again, all out of the box if you turned on mobility for your standard site. Site navigation has also been changed, so you kind of, if I click on the gear, that's how the navigation looks like. Doc libraries out of the box, that's how they look like. Timeline, and also creating a new task. These are all kind of the standard out of the box views. Now, if you've done a lot of branding yourself already, then you'll probably want to go back and look at updating your branding to be mobile friendly. But again, these mobile changes that I'm showing here are specific to out-of-the-box SharePoint sites automatically. As soon as you flip the switch for mobility, this is what you're going to see. Now, to help you, if you wanted to have specific views or master pages for specific devices, they've implemented something called device channels. Before, if you wanted to make these changes, you had to actually bust out code and make an HTML handler, so you'd have to hire a developer to go, if it's an iPad, I want it to look like this. If it's a Windows phone, I want it to look like this. With device channels, Microsoft's gone out there and already done the research and found device exclusion rules, and it gives you the ability to go in there and say, let's say I want to do an iPad, so I want to do a stream of content or I want to do a stream of branding specifically to iPad. I can use the device channel and go in there and say, I want to only do a device channel for an iPad, and I'm going to call it tablet. By doing that, I can now build master pages or build pages that are specifically created for the iPad or whatever device I want. And they can also, you can have many different ones in there. So Windows Phone OS, iPhone, and Android. So again, if you have specific need for doing development for specific devices, you can use device channels for your branding. The cloud app model, which is the next thing we're going to talk about, is taking the ability and really treating SharePoint as a platform. So being able to go out there and build compelling apps, being able to make them easily distributed inside your environment, and using a very flexible model so your developers don't have to learn so much to be able to do integration inside of that. So the way they did that was with 2 specific products, SharePoint obviously, and with Office 2013. So they said, we have these 2 products and platforms, and we have these great services and data available, so like SharePoint, Microsoft Dynamics, Bing, SQL Server, Yammer. We have all these great services, and we have these great products. How can we get the 2 of them together very easily by creating apps? So what they did was created the new app model. So what the new app model does is makes it very easy for those products to be able to integrate with those services very easily with the cloud app model. So I can go in there and very quickly create an expense calculator, and let's say I want to have that expense calculator work with my Windows Azure, or maybe work with SQL Server directly. Or I want to create just a standard vacation request form that goes directly against my SharePoint environment. The cloud app model gives you the ability to quickly spin up apps inside of these products and be able to do that. So you might think, okay, he brought up Office in there. What do you mean by Office? So if you have Office 2013 right now, you can go out there to the Office store and you can download free apps, or you can purchase apps. For this specific example, I'm showing a dictionary app. So I went out there, got the free dictionary app. I brought it down, and on a Word document, I said I want to use this app on the right panel. So when I send that email or that Word document off to somebody in my company, and they're kind of reading through it going, what word is he talking about? They can just click on that word and go down to define, and then there's my app on the right, automatically going out there doing a lookup on that dictionary object and pulling it back. Another great one is Excel service. So I could use Excel document. I could get the Bean Map app, and then let's say in that Excel document I have a bunch of addresses. I could go through on all those addresses. I could just highlight the column and say use these columns, tell the Bean app to use the columns, and it will automatically put all those little pins on the Bean. So again, if you have Office 2013, you might want to go out there and take a look at the Office store and be able to, quickly see what you can do automatically. For SharePoint, it's the same thing. You have SharePoint hosted apps, which are apps that you can go out, you can buy, or you can develop your own that are available to you, or you can develop your own apps. Now again, you aren't restricted. You can still do what are called provider-hosted apps, which means I want to develop an app, but the back end is my own custom database that I have my own proprietary information on. You can still develop an app and set all that type of capabilities available to you. The other great thing about this cloud app model is it's also available in Office 365. So if you're looking at Office 365, you can still build all these type of apps and put them in Office 365, whereas before you could not build custom solutions and put them inside of Office 365. The next one that I'm going to go through very quickly is business intelligence. So business intelligence is one thing that a lot of people haven't asked for because they want to see the nice kind of dashboards. SharePoint 2013 has kind of done a lot of enhancements in regards to its BI offering, so specifically Excel, SharePoint, and SQL Server. Traditional reporting, if you've ever seen Excel, kind of old Excel reports, you had kind of a view like this. You had a bunch of nice columns, a total. I would send this off to an executive who wanted, it all by country name. But then I'd have another executive going, hey, I want that same report, but I want you to do it by sales territory name, and then I also want you to show it by states for United States. So as a developer of reports, I would then have to go back, create a brand new report of the same data, and send it to them. So now I have two reports of the same data that I have to do. That became kind of a challenge. So what they said was, well, let's go in there and implement something, what we call Power View capabilities. And I'm going to, in one Excel document, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to put in all the data that anybody would ever want to know, and I'm going to add in the features for the person themselves, the person that's actually consuming the data, to be able to do the filtering and all the type of information that they want through a Power View add-in. So what this means is I create one report or one data store of all the documents, and now the user who comes in can go in there and he can change the report around just by changing the little areas that are available to me. So I could shrink down product categories, or I could drill down on specific trends or change the financial data. That user is not changing any of the data, they're just changing their view. So this gives the power back to the user and gives the report person them to focus on what they're good at, which is pulling in large amounts of data. They also made this very mobile friendly. So you can go in there and view these nice dashboards and pull in that nice data through Excel 2013 or through the Office web apps view of that type of data inside of SharePoint. You can also do pivot charts. So pivot charts are really nice because you can set up animation inside there. So pull in 10 years of historical data on billing that I've done at my company. And then I can say, why don't you show me a trend and animate that for me? By using Power View, it can actually animate it for you. And there's actually a nice export button that you can say, click export the actual animation that I did, and put it inside of a PowerPoint slide. And then I now have that beautiful data and that nice Power View presentation of animation, and I dropped it right into a Power View or a presentation that I can now give in PowerPoint. So again, Power View is kind of the idea of giving you the managed self-service BI. So giving the person that's consuming the data the power to be able to view the data how they want, and making the people that are responsible for aggregating that data to just focus on the data and not worry about the presentation. And again, it ties into the Excel data model, and it has ties in directly to analysis services. So to get that Power View type of capability, you would have to have Office Professional Plus 2013 or Office 365, or if you have Excel, the Excel web app, so that falls in line with if you have SharePoint Server 2013, if you have a SQL Server 2012 backend, or if you want to do the Power View standalone, if you have SharePoint Server 2010, you do have a standard Power View. It doesn't have all the capabilities, but it is available to you. But that's, again, the different capabilities that you can get available inside of Business Intelligence. And again, you still have all the type of dashboarding that you had before in 2010. It's just now that power has been pushed down to the actual consumer of the data. The last thing we're going to talk about is going to be OneDrive for Business. This is recently what has been renamed from SkyDrive Pro is now OneDrive for Business. So specifically, what is SkyDrive or SkyDrive Pro? What it's really known for is if you have SkyDrive, you would go out there and do kind of your vacation pictures. But for the enterprise, it's kind of an issue. A lot of people would look at using Box or Dropbox, or they might just use SkyDrive, and they'd put all their personal documents, and then if somebody needed a copy of that document, they would go out, get a copy of it, send it to them, and then they might put it on their own drive and do all that management back and forth. That became a bit of a nightmare. And then, of course, if you had tons of document libraries, and I wanted salespeople to be able to access those document libraries, if they needed the newest version, they'd have to go download all that data before they went on the road. Well, with SkyDrive Pro, what you're doing is giving these document libraries the ability to be offline or offloaded onto the actual desktop or into a file share for that user. So now they can go in there, be able to set that their actual document library and be able to sync that data down or back. You also have integration directly with Office 2013. So being able to go set up security, let's say, and be able to say, I want to share this document with somebody else, instead of having to go into SharePoint and say, I need to share it with these different individuals, I can actually use the Office tool itself and click on the Share tab and be able to invite people and give them permission this way instead of having to go into SharePoint specifically. Of course, I can still use SharePoint and set up all my permissions that way, but by having the actual tool integrated with Office, I don't have to do two different hops to be able to set up that permission. Document libraries. So with document libraries, I can go on there and click on see what documents are available. I can see very quickly on any document library, if it has a lock icon, I know that it's not shared with anybody else. If I see a couple little people icon, I know very quickly, hey, that document is being shared with somebody. So I could very quickly click on the contextual menu of that document and see specifically who actually has access to this document. I can now, in that quick contextual menu, be able to change their permission, change if they have edit or just read access. I can invite other people in there so I can give them permission. But again, it's a lot easier to give management of the actual document permissions than it was before. So in this case, I'm going in here saying I want to say for this specific document, I want to give somebody specific access to edit. I can quickly go in there and give them permission. It also has the ability to have a little flag called require sign-on. So what that means is I can force them to have to log in again. They'll get a login prompt to make sure that they are actually who they are to be able to access that document. Now back to the sync capabilities. With the sync capabilities, I can click on the sync icon on a document library. It then will pop up and say, okay, you want to take this document library and you want to sync it down to your desktop. And I can go in there and I can say, I want to sync this document library to this specific folder on my desktop. I would say sync now. And now that document is always in sync with my document library. So if I were to go on the road or be in the airport and I don't have internet access, I have the documents because it's synced the last time I was connected to the internet. I make my changes. Let's say I add a couple of documents to the document library through the folder. As soon as I get to my destination and I get connected back to the internet, SkyDrive Pro or OneDrive is going to look at, hey, you made some changes, and now I'm going to take those changes and I'm going to sync them up. Let's say that somebody else made a change on a Word document that I made changes to. It's going to go up there and it's going to try and merge those changes or give me notification that, hey, that document has some changes in it. I'm going to keep your changes in there, but you have to go in there and actually approve those changes. But this is really great, again, for those people that are mobile workforce that aren't always going to be connected to the internet. That's what OneDrive is really going to give you the capabilities. And again, I know I went through a ton of features really quick today. And again, this is just kind of whetting your appetite for all the different features that are available in 2013. With that, I'm going to open the floor up to any specific questions that you guys had on any of the topics that I covered today. So feel free to ask any questions if you have any.
All right, if there aren't any questions, Nate, I want to thank you for presenting. Following the conclusion of this webinar, we'll be sending you a copy of our guide, SharePoint Managed Services, How to Make SharePoint Work for You, so you can look for that in your inbox soon. Thanks for attending, and please reach out if you have any questions.